the NFL draft happened. The third pick, a little bit of drama going into it, mainly because of what we were told between the options of Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and it was always Trey Lance. It was always Trey Lance, which Kyle Shanahan, I love him. Like we have said this plenty of times, but for him to be asked about the Mac Jones and for him to just straight up say, yeah, we didn't start that. We don't know where that started, but we sure as hell weren't going to stop it. That's all I needed to hear from him. It made me feel happy. He's had a lot of very good quotes. Yes, it is Monday. We're still alive. I'm sure everybody else enjoyed their version of that tweet because I thought I was the only one. Obviously, I thought I was the only one who thought of that idea. I wasn't. So I guess we will talk about the draft now. Trey Lance being the third pick in the draft. Your instant reaction, because we were live when that happened. We know what your instant reaction was. Give me your reaction now that we've had 4 days to kind of let it marinate and how we feel.
I'm just a little sad. Our comments aren't as lit up with people who have things to say about Mac Jones anymore. I wonder where they went. I'm sorry. You told me not to troll them. You told me not to troll back or anything.
I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one.
That's it. We're done, right? Like our comment section isn't as lit as it was these last few weeks because people wanted to try to troll.
As Spider-Man famously said in Family Guy that one time, everybody gets one.
Everybody gets one. Done. We're done talking about that. But it is true. When they talked about the process and they were talking about how, Mac, they were comfortable with the idea of maybe getting Mac and things like that. But it seemed like when Kyle talked about being in Cabo and he got to that beach house and he said, that's what I did there. I sat with film and they walked away and he called John Lynch and was like, dude, are you ready to draft Trey Lance? And John Lynch said, I always wanted Trey Lance, but I never wanted to make that known to pollute the process. So it goes back to the press conference where John said, hey, I defer to Kyle when it comes to this stuff. And he did. And it was really funny to hear that about Lynch saying, I didn't want to, disrupt the process with my thoughts, but that's who Lynch wanted the entire time himself as well, too, man. And, again, it's so good. I'm glad that coaches, one, dispelling the narrative that Kirk Cousins is his prototypical quarterback. We all thought that that's what was going to change. We just, you and I predicted Justin Fields. Didn't happen. Shout out to Justin Fields. I hope you go to Chicago and you kill it also, by the way. Yeah. But Trey Lance, we're good, honestly. We're good over here on this side with this pick because we always wanted it to be one of those two things. I think we were all just in agreement that we didn't want Mac Jones there. And you know what, man? This offense is going to be insane. We'll talk about who they added on later in the draft. That should only make people more excited. But that dynamic that we were talking about in the offense with the RPO and now having that be something that the quarterback can take and run, Godspeed opposing defenses, your hands are full now.
And I've seen people say like, oh, expect Shanahan to use Trey Lance like Taysom Hill. And like, I get the spirit of the idea. They're not going to use him as Taysom Hill, though. I think what people are getting mixed up because like Taysom Hill's value, like the comparison there is like you can kind of do a little bit of everything with him, which is true. Like I'm not going to everybody knows I'm not a big Taysom Hill guy, but like it's true. You could use him. I think what people are trying to say is they're trying to like simple down that argument because there is going to be, if Jimmy Garoppolo is there week one, which it feels like he is at this point, that could change. There's going to be Trey Lance packages. And they're not going to be like Taysom Hill where he's going to line up at tight end and he's going to line up. They're going to be like, dare I say, McKinnon in the Wildcat, where he's lined up as the quarterback. Even fancy things, maybe even split Garoppolo out wide, do some motion behind the line, things like that. I think that's perfect right now. Like to me, in a perfect world, Trey Lance is your week one starter.
Yep.
And that's only because I'm not trying to say Trey Lance is better than Jimmy Garoppolo right now. That's still yet to be decided. It's just more of you can save $24 million by not having Garoppolo on the roster and maybe make a trade for certain players that might be like things like that. Not even necessarily a trade because the Niners don't have a ton of draft capital to move right now. But just having that cap savings to me would be the biggest benefit of Trey Lance starting at quarterback. But I think the Trey Lance pick is really telling that I think they're telling the truth about Garoppolo being the week one starter. And that's okay. Like that's what I've said since the start is hey, Jimmy Garoppolo being your week one starter is not the worst thing. There's worse places to be. what Trey Lance excites me about, and I think Mina Kimes tweeted about it, is you get the best run designer in the NFL in Kyle Shanahan and get him a quarterback who can move.
Mhm.
And that's a terrifying thought. I am really excited for Trey Lance.
Mhm.
And I've watched, just full disclosure for everybody, I haven't watched everything on Trey Lance. I'm really excited to dive into the tape on not just Trey Lance, but also everybody else the Niners drafted, because I want to know. I'm not a big, know everybody in the draft. I just want to know who the Niners draft, and I'll focus on them. And I will have way more thought out thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Sentence.
Yeah. No, yeah, that works.
I'll have more thought out thoughts about Trey Lance in the future when I actually dive into the tape more. But for me, man, like if we're doing draft grades, because draft grades are the best at this time because they've all played a bunch of NFL snaps, A+. Yeah. Every pick in my mind is an A+, until it's not. But yeah, like moving up, trading 2 first round picks to go get Trey Lance, that should be enough to say, hey, this is our guy to be the starter week 1. But I love the pick. Like, I guess I've really just talked in circles here. I love the pick.
Yeah.
I think you couldn't go wrong with either Fields or Lance.
Right.
And I think they went Lance.
No, you're right. And I think those packages that you were talking about, they're not going to be like Taysom Hill. Let me point you back to when Colin Kaepernick would come in for a run play while Alex Smith was the quarterback, that type of thing.
Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Right. And if that's the case, then that means that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be here. So let's just operate under the assumption that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be here week 1 starter, which isn't the worst thing in the world, right? We kind of talked about how we thought that he would be the guy that's going to be there, even if I alluded to the idea that I thought that maybe he would be traded on day 2. I think the Teddy Bridgewater trade really, really took away any sort of compensation that they were looking for, because if Teddy is fetching a 6th and Jimmy Garoppolo is in a similar tier, you're not going to get anywhere near that 2nd that you shoveled out or that 1st round that was being rumored, right? But when we talk about how they can use Trey Lance in the beginning, if they don't want to throw him, right in, is those Kaepernick sort of packages where it's just straight up jet sweeps and let him find the hole and get to it, things like that. I'm not completely against that, but I'm with you on the idea that I think Trey Lance should start day 1. Here's my thing. Everybody has issues with his experience and him not playing in the last year. So it kind of is weird to me when I hear people say he needs to sit. He's already sitting. Do you want him to learn, or do you want him to just sit more? So my thing is when we talk about the simplified offense that Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Mullins, and CJ Beathard have been running for the last 1.5 to 2 years, Trey Lance can operate that easily, especially when they consider that, when we talk about some of these other draft picks down the line, it's clear what the 49ers want to do with the football. They're going to run the ball 45, 50 times at you and Godspeed to you trying to stop that. So, again, this isn't going to be something where they're going to make Trey Lance become a pocket passer or somebody who's going to have to go down the field 40, 50 times, right? So, even if he does start day 1, Kyle will insulate him with everything he needs. Also, when you look at the history of guys taken as highly as him, they pretty much tend to start, if not right away, within like week 6 or 7. So I would expect to see Trey Lance, if not day 1, sooner than later, honestly. But then that all really depends on what you can get for Jimmy Garoppolo at this point, who, by the way, man, if that story is true, that was put out about him being the first person to text Trey Lance, kudos to you and good on you, man. Classy move as well, man. I understand that could be upsetting because, nobody wants to be replaced, but I got to give you respect for that, man. I really do, honestly. So when it comes to Trey, man, this pick is the future pick. This is the one that really gets to me. Trey Lance turns 21 next week.
Yeah.
It's very feasible that by the time that they pick up his 5th-year option, he'll be 25. Crazy. That means he can be here for 10 more years after that. Like, it's so insane when you start to think about what they've done and how young Trey Lance is. Under center, play action, everything that you want with the running. Honestly, man, this is an amazing pick. I love Trey Lance, and I'm so happy for this, honestly.
Yeah, and one of the things you kind of touched on too is, the how little he played in college. You talked about that real quick in the jump to the NFL, and as I said, I'm gonna really dive into the Lance tape here in maybe the next week or two. And I was kind of organizing things. He played the North Dakota State played 16 games in 20 last
19.
year that we didn't have COVID, whatever year that was, 2019. They all just blend together.
Right.
That, like, in a normal college that doesn't, like, if he played at a D1, that's a year and a half of games because you usually play 12 games, 13 if you're on a really good one. Like, I just I just kind of expected there not to be a lot about with him because everybody was like, hey, he hasn't played a lot, which yes, in a vacuum he hasn't, but 16 games is a lot. That's a lot of college tape, I think. And yeah, sure, he didn't play the top schools in the nation. He did play UC Davis, which is a top 5 FCS school. You know, we don't talk about UC Davis enough. I only know about them because I live near them. So I don't know. I think that is a little more blown out of proportion than it should be. Just looking at how many games he did play, I understand the fear of him coming from North Dakota State into the NFL. I get that, but every quarterback's a different basis. It's a different thing, case to case. And I really think he has the size to play in the NFL. I think he has the skill set to play in the NFL. And I personally, I want him to be the week 1 starter, but I understand if he's not.
Also, can I dispel one more narrative?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's dispel all the narratives.
All right. I understand everybody's assumption that Kyle Shanahan's playbook is complicated. I think we've talked about on this podcast that the concepts are concepts that everyone runs. What's complicated is the verbiage. And Trey Lance ran all of those same similar Shanahan concepts in the run game, in the RPO game, in the play action game. So honestly, Trey Lance must have blown them away with their interview process on what he could learn. I think there was an RG3. There was an RG3, or RG3 was out there, I think, on Bleacher Report doing the draft, right?
Yeah.
And they asked him about what happened in the first year with the Shanahans, right? And it really, that one really dispelled the narrative that RG3 and the Shanahans didn't get along. When he talked about what they did for him in the beginning, it was, okay, can you memorize all these plays? Can you get through the verbiage? Can you get through it all? And I think what I read somewhere, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong, is that Trey's already picking this up after having the playbook for 2 days. I mean, honestly, Kyle wouldn't have went to him if he wasn't this smart, let alone the physical attributes. I don't think it's overstated that it's a little bit too complicated for Trey Lance to get together. And I don't think that that's the case. So in that case, he's run all of those same concepts. He just needs to catch up with the verbiage. I feel like this offense and this team is going to be in on him because he is a good kid so far from all reports and everything indicating. So I just don't think that. I think it's a little bit overstated about needing to pick up the playbook, needing to sit. You know, I don't know if that's the case, but I think it's way closer than people think. It's not something that's foreign, absolutely, to him.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is too is like if you want to believe what Shanahan said, where he said, "Yeah, Lance was the guy since January." That's all you need to know because, I mean, he probably didn't know much about, or he probably didn't know much personally about Lance in January because of the COVID rules. You can't see him. And then he goes and sees him for pro days and all that stuff. And he continues it, right? They trade up to get Lance. They select Lance 3rd. Obviously, there's something about Trey Lance that Kyle Shanahan likes. And listen, I know we like to talk about CJ Beathard, and he didn't have Watson and Mahomes on his board because of Cousins and all that stuff. But he to me, he hasn't shown that we shouldn't trust him in his analysis of quarterbacks because they did go out and get Garoppolo. He did turn Garoppolo into a Super Bowl quarterback. Yes, I know Garoppolo isn't the reason they went to the Super Bowl, but you can't say Garoppolo didn't play a part. He didn't play a decent chunk of it, and a lot of that I think is Shanahan. So, yes, the worries of he's going to have to learn these things. Kyle Shanahan will have a way to find out exactly how to get Trey Lance to understand everything he needs to understand in a way Trey Lance will understand. So, like, I'm just really not worried. And I would be saying these same things if the pick was Justin Fields, if it was Mac Jones, because I trust Kyle Shanahan to that level with any quarterback you want to give him. Like he got a 7-9 season out of a year I can't. God,
Major League.
Embarrassing. Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. Majority of the year was led by Nick Mullins. There we go. I got the sentence out. So, like, I'm not too worried about it. I'm really not. As I said, I think the biggest question is going to be when Lance is the starter, not if. And that's really my thing.
Yeah, honestly, I think we've kind of touched on everything. We've gone for about 15 minutes on it. I think that we love the pick and we're ready to go. Honestly, this is it's an exciting time for 49ers fans. I think the timeline took a big sigh of relief. Like I think I heard it all the way in Cleveland, just when the pick was not Mac and everything just turned out. So I'm ready to go. Let's go with Trey and let's roll, honestly. And then the rest of this draft was really indicative of what the plans are.